Okay, I admit it. We jumped the gun. We were a little bit too positive, maybe a lot of bit too positive last summer on the 2024 Bears. But can you blame us? They had a new quarterback. They had a bunch of really good weapons on paper. The defense was really solid on paper. And, we just kind of forgot that successful football teams also have at least decent offensive lines and at least a halfway decent play caller and maybe a head coach that knows what he's doing at all. Those three things are kind of important. So, all right, I admit it. We screwed up. But this time, we mean it. The Bears are going to be better.
Chicago finally ponied up and got the top coaching candidate available. Not the fifth guy, not the middle guy, the top coaching candidate available, who has run one of the best offenses in the NFL in their own division for the last 3 years. You can hedge if you want to, but I am going to choose to be optimistic about this. Brett, I want to know how you feel about it.
Brother, I'm wearing a Muhsin Muhammad jersey. How do you think I'm feeling today?
I'm thinking you think Chicago is the place where receivers go to die still. So that was Moose's famous quote.
For a long time, he was correct.
Yep, he nailed it.
But I saw the one 18-month stretch where Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey were really good. So I believe it can be that way again. Just ideally won't end the same way the Trestman era did, but yeah, it's happened before. By the way, how crazy is it that this team had Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Forte, tight end, they had everything and still didn't throw for 4,000 yards. How is that even possible?
It's a curse at this point. There really isn't any other explanation. And to your point, it's happened multiple times. The first year of Trestman was really good offense. And then the wheels came off and the wagon caught on fire, just for good measure. The first year of Nagy was really good offense. And then the wheels fell off and the wagon caught on fire. And anyway, it's a pattern. We're just assuming that they have fire extinguishers this time and they've checked their lug nuts and that Ben Johnson is going to drive this wagon to a place where other coaches have not been able to get it.
There are Bears fans out there. It's I tuned in for a 90-minute episode, or between 60 and 90. I don't know. These have a range. To hear about Ben Johnson. And within the first 30 seconds, you bring up Mark Trestman and Nagy. So sorry about that, guys. By the way, thank you to Alex, my wonderful mod, for sending me this Muhsin Muhammad jersey. His goal in life is apparently for me to have the most off-the-wall degenerate jersey collection of all time. So if you guys have any suggestions for really, Moose is a good player, but if you have some truly degen jersey ideas for your favorite team, please drop them in the comments below because we need inspiration.
Emmitt Smith on the Cardinals.
Oh, Emmitt Smith on the Cardinals. Honestly, not a cheap jersey. Not cheap at all. Any Ed Reed Texans, any of these first ballot Hall of Famers that go off to Siberia for a year. Those are usually the jerseys that are really hard to find. Trust me, I've tried. But he also sent me an Andre Johnson Titans jersey. So
I have seen.
We've been down that road.
Yep.
All right. It's Bears Day. A lot of people have been waiting patiently for this part of the series. We're almost halfway through the summer series already, believe it or not. I would be willing to bet this is going to be one of the longest episodes. Not just because we love talking about this team, but also because there's so much new about this team. It almost feels like a 2024 recap. I don't want to say it's unnecessary, but there's so much new here that it feels like we're beating a dead horse about a problem that's already been solved. So not just for your own mental health, but I think for everybody's mental health, we don't need to stick too much on 2024. We can, I think, talk about the new stuff for most of today's show because everything that was wrong, at least most things that were wrong, has kind of already been addressed.
It's a fantastic story in that way that, yes, there's lots of terrible marks. In fact, most of the marks from last season are pretty terrible. But because of that, wholesale change came to the coaching side of the organization and really to personnel. And we're going to focus on both of those as positives moving forward. Just for reference, for fans of the entire series who might not be Bears fans, we'll at least go through the power scores just to talk about why it was bad enough that the Bears were not able to stomach the status quo, because they've done that plenty of times in the past. They said enough is enough and made a serious change, and boy, was it time for it. We'll talk about the passing offense, the rushing offense, passing defense, rushing defense, points scored and points allowed. We just assigned their league rank. Brace yourselves. A lot of low numbers here. We'll go through it really fast. Passing offense, 25th. Rushing offense, even worse, 28th. Pass defense, the lone bright spot, a top 10 unit, number 9 in the NFL. Rush defense, 26th. Points scored, 28th. Points allowed, 13th. That's a pretty decent scoring defense, but as you know by now in the series, too many low numbers. You add them all up, divide by 6th. They end up with the 24th best power score. They are the 24th most or least powerful team. They are, 6-7 spots off the bottom. This was not a great team. It was a discombobulated team, one that came out of the gate slowly and badly, ended up with 3 offensive coordinators over the course of one season. That is not a mark you want your team to have. And the good news is, because of all that, again, wholesale change that we'll spend a lot of time talking about today. Ben Johnson comes to the organization, which is a breath of fresh air for those of us Bears fans that have suffered through all the other coaching hires of the last, insert large number of years here. And he came in with a vision that we're going to break down in pieces. But number one, I think was, and I am convinced this happened in his interview. He took one look at Ryan Poles and went, "We're going to have an offensive line." And Ryan Poles went, yeah, I was an offensive line. He said, no, Ryan, you don't understand. We're going to have a good offensive line. We're not going to do it like you guys did it before. And they, yes.
We're going to go pay a center, Ryan. Yeah.
We're going to do it the way I want to do it. I am very used to having a very good offensive line in Detroit. My system is predicated on that, and that is a non-negotiable. If you don't want to talk about that, we're not going to talk about this. And they went, oh, you mean it? Like, mean it. And Ben went, yeah, absolutely. I 100% mean it. And they went out and did it. And that alone, outside of hiring Ben in the first place, is one of the most stark changes as a longtime Bears fan, that they got dead serious about the offensive line this year and said, no bones about it. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it right.
And it wasn't just about them bringing in O-line talent. It was them bringing in O-line talent that fit the scheme. Ben Johnson loves outside zone. He loves outside zone more than almost everybody else in the NFL. They ran it the 3rd highest clip in Detroit last year, which, when you have Frank Ragnow at center, makes sense. Typically, when you have an elite center and you can get away with running that much outside zone, you're going to do it, because outside zone, you kind of need a good center to make it effective. So they ran it 3rd most in the NFL at 50% last year, which is a monster number for one single run concept. They were not above 16th in any other individual run concept, and we'll kind of throw that page on screen right now so you could see all the different concepts that they called and how often they called them. And then if you want down and distance breakdowns, we have that over on the infographic as well. But those are the overall numbers. As far as how that translates to Chicago, bringing in guards that excel in that system, but more importantly, bringing in a center that excels in that system. This has been a franchise that's been allergic to upgrading its center for God knows how many years at this point. They went out and they paid Drew Dahlman, who was the center for a run game in Atlanta that was one of the few that dwarfed Ben Johnson in how much they called outside zone. Like, you think 50% is a lot. Atlanta was number 1 in the league at 64%, guys. Like, they barely called anything else, relatively speaking. So, if you're gonna run this much outside zone, assuming DeAndre Swift is the lead back, and it's one of the few concepts that I think he really excels in, you need a center that's capable of doing it. And then touching on DeAndre Swift as well, the last time he was with Ben Johnson in Detroit, which is 2022, he averaged 5.4 yards per carry on outside zones. So to start things off with this whole Ben Johnson transformation discussion, that is what they're going to be. as far as the structure of the run game. They are going to unapologetically lean into that concept, and I'd be willing to bet they're going to be pretty good at it.
I would as well. On the macro level, it makes a lot of sense, and it's interesting. One of the most fascinating points to me in this entire transition, this off season, is the correlation between what Ben did in Detroit and what he's going to do in Chicago. And many people think that's going to port directly over. And I've been like, I'm not sure that's the case. Ben Johnson's a very good coach. His entire roster is different. It does not have the same strengths as the Detroit roster. It does not have the same players or even necessarily player types that the Lions had. He is going to adjust because he is a very smart and savvy coach, and the offense is therefore going to look somewhat different because of it. We can definitely reach out for touch points and say, hey, in general, he runs this scheme or this schematic. In general, he targets this position, let's say tight end, this much, or has in the past. There will be elements of that. And of course, there will be trickery because he does love his trick plays. He's got volumes of those things. Everybody for the last 2 years has been like, man, I wish you wouldn't show it so early in the season. I'm like, buddy, you think he doesn't have 85 more on his desk right now that he's only going to get to run 10 of this season? He's not going to run out of bullets here. He is one of the most creative coaches in the league for that. But the parallels between those two are fascinating to me. And then the way that he installs everything is markedly different from previous coaching regimes in Chicago. And I think on the macro side, we can talk about scheme and schematics, and we will. And on the micro side, there is no such thing as good enough. He will stop you in practice multiple times on the same rep and say, no, that's not the way we do it. And I kind of want to insert the graphic from Whiplash here. Not quite my tempo. I need that a little bit differently.
But it's that detail orientedness, speaking of Whiplash, that will give you whiplash because you compare that to last year's staff that wouldn't even watch film with Caleb. And it's like the adults are in the room. Right? It's like, oh, that's what real coaching looks like. And it pisses me off all over again that we had to wait an extra 12 months for this because they probably could have just done this last year. He would have come to Chicago because he liked Caleb a lot. So again, what a waste of time 2024 was. Especially I think this time last year we were kind of like cautiously optimistic. We're like, oh, maybe Shane Waldron, maybe Flus will turn around. And then we got to Halloween and we're like, this is a fucking disaster. Like, what have we been doing this for? It just feels so different this year. It just feels like a professional operation. It feels like there's real coaches and the optimism is not as forced as it was in previous. It just feels legitimate.
He's going to demand that they perform the way that he needs them to. And there isn't going to be this sort of throw your hands up and say, well, we tried and it's not working. That is not Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is a borderline psycho football coach. And I say that in the highest possible regard. The 3 times that I've seen him speak in person, you get a little worried. There's a flame that flickers behind those eyes. And he's like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do it exactly this way and it's going to work. And you're like, yes, sir. I don't even play for you and I believe you. And that is a marked difference from really any of the previous coaching regimes. No matter what they said, Flus was very much more laid back and, let it happen. Ben Johnson is the complete opposite of that in the best possible way.
There's another note I want to get to about Ben and specifically how he structures his pass game. And I'm going to be showing some pages from the Lions infographic here because obviously that was where he called his offense. But if you're a patron and you're following along with our companion infographic, if you go to page 6, we have a play calling continued page. There's 18 pages in this thing. Page 6 is play calling continued. And we have alignment and motion stats in there. So we have overall under center rate, overall shotgun rate, pistol rate, motion at the snap rate. And that on its own really kind of paints a picture. There's also play action rates in there too. That on its own kind of paints a picture of how much this Lions pass game was ingrained into the structure of the Lions run game, i.e. they line up under center more than anybody else. They run play action more than anybody else. And that's because they run the ball more than almost anybody else. Their run pass rate was fourth heaviest in the NFL. And so that demands a certain skill set from your quarterback to be able to line up under center that often, to be able to run that much play action where you're turning your back to the defense and then trying to locate where defenders are when you turn back around and see where the safeties are. Did they rotate post snap? Did they bring a blitz that I didn't see? And I'll be honest, Caleb struggled mightily doing that last year. So I want to compare some of the numbers of Jared Goff in these types of situations compared to Caleb, and you'll see like just how far he still has to go, and that's going to be Ben Johnson's job, is to get him there. So as I mentioned, Detroit first overall in under center rate last year, 57.2%, first in play action, 19th in overall motion rate, 20th in motion at the snap rate, 4th in run rate. When you look at the passing map, Jared Goff threw to the middle of the field a lot. And he threw to the middle of the field a lot very quickly. His average time to throw on play action passes from under center was only 2.96 seconds. That was faster than almost everybody in the NFL. It was second fastest in the league among starters. And that sounds like a long time, but remember, when you have to turn your back to the defense, give a hard play action fake, get to 9-10 yards deep in the pocket, get to your spot, turn around, find where defenders are, read out the concept. Like doing that in under 3 seconds is actually like mind-bogglingly fast. It's not like a shotgun look where you're catching the ball, you take a sometimes it's a one-step drop and you get it out quickly. It's not like that at all. These are long developing pass plays that Johnson based his pass game off of. As a comparison, Caleb was average time to throw on under center play action of 3.89 seconds, which was slowest in the entire NFL. When you go back and you look at his under center play action reps, there was a lot of meat left on the bone, like a concerning amount of meat left on the bone. And it felt like last year he was trying to learn how to turn his eyes away from the defense and then relocate late in the play, which is what's required for play action. And he didn't trust it. And maybe it was his aversion to throwing picks because he really, really didn't want to turn the ball over. But like his level of trust in what he was looking at down the field was extraordinarily low. And that then translated to a passer rating on under center play action of being 26th among starting quarterbacks. Compare that to Goff, who was third in that metric. So I think it's something that shows up statistically, and it's something that shows up on film. That was not an area of comfort for Caleb, like not just being under center, but doing the under center play action game. Like he just wasn't very good at it last year. I think Ben Johnson's number one goal this offseason is to get Caleb comfortable with that, because if Caleb is not comfortable doing under center play action, they're going to have to change the entire structure of this offense. Now, he was good at play action in shotgun. He had the 9th highest passer rating, Caleb that is, 9th highest passer rating in shotgun play action. It was just under center stuff that he really struggled with. So if Johnson can get him to a level of comfort where he's like 16th, 15th in the league, like just be okay at it, I think that is a building block for success for this passing game. But if he is still struggling and not getting the ball out quickly when he has to turn his back to the defense, like changes will have to be made very quickly, because so much of what made Johnson's offense good was Goff being good at doing that.
And I think there are 3 elements for those type of plays, under center play action, that really play into the overall play's success. And Caleb is going to have to get better at his third. That's 1/3, the quarterback actually turning and reading, making the physical movements and making the mental adjustments to execute that play correctly. The other 2 that were not at all consistent under any of the 3 offensive coordinators in Chicago last year was the offensive line play. So the picture when Caleb turned around was a complete crapshoot. Sometimes there was going to be a defender directly in his face. Sometimes he was going to have very good pockets. He had both, but you could never tell down to down whether or not that was going to happen. Certainly not quarter to quarter or even game to game, with so many different starting offensive lineups that It was just not something he had confidence in. So that made it shaky from the start. And the second was route concepts. Route concepts are very important. Quarterback needs to know where those receivers are. And there were some, what's the nicest bad word I can use here?
Discombobulation?
Abysmal route concepts.
Okay, sure.
When you looked at all 22 footage for Chicago last year, there were lots of plays that I and many others looked at and went, what the hell? What do you do? Why are these guys stacked on top of each other? There's one defender there and he doesn't even know what to do because he's covering both of them. And he's just like, all right, there's one of me, and that just means there's an extra defender somewhere. So you have route concepts, you have protection, and you have the quarterback's mechanics to execute those plays. And it all needs to work for those type of plays to work successfully and well. And it's like building blocks. The offensive line has to work first. The route concepts have to work next. And again, the quarterback, who is the latest developing in that play, is going to turn around, see those things in place, and then hopefully execute. That's the third part. A lot of times, Caleb didn't even get to the third part. And sometimes when he did or could, he didn't do very well. So yeah, there's improvement in all three of those things. We already talked about the improvement in the offensive line. The detail orientation is really going to help the receivers in their routes. And then yeah, Caleb has to do his part and improve up to, I would say, mid-pack in the NFL for this offense to function at a level that Ben will be satisfied with.
Overall, if we're kind of doing our little check-in here about what was their identity before and what do they want their identity to be now? Beyond scheme and beyond the body types they brought in and trying to go up a weight class up front, beyond all that stuff, truly the identity last year was toxic individuality. And the identity this year, at least what they want it to be, is accountability. And I think those two things lead to everything else, positive and negative. I think the toxic individuality of last year, if you're looking at all the major blunders made by individual players, whether it was the Tyreek Stevenson thing or the coaching staff apparently not being interested in actually helping Caleb develop whatsoever, or, some of the hero ball picks that Caleb threw. Like I think about the Houston game, like it just felt like a room full of guys that were just there individually, and there was no team. There was no team whatsoever, and that led to resentment, that led to toxicity, that led to everybody getting fired halfway through the year, and players just checking out. And you compare that to the accountability that Ben Johnson seems to be bringing to the building as an outside observer. And it's a really stark contrast, because it definitely feels like a we over me type of mindset shift. It definitely feels like players understand the why behind what they're being asked to do, and not just doing what they're being asked to do. Like they actually understand why, which in itself is something that I still don't understand why a lot of coaches don't do, as in they just expect guys to listen to them without understanding what they're being told. Like it's like, no, just listen to the movements I'm teaching you and do the movements. And like they don't actually prioritize having the players have a deeper understanding of why those movements matter. And I think that's what separates good coaches from bad coaches. And it really does seem like Ben Johnson is teaching the why and not just the how. That's the point I'm trying to get to here. Took a long way to get there, Brett, but we got there. But it does feel like there's so much optimism in the building, because it feels like everybody is accountable to each other. And it's a lot easier to do good work if you're happy in your workplace, and also if you feel like you're not just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for all of your friends and your family, and you're trying to make sure that not only your family gets food put on the table, but also everybody else in the building too. Like when you're all in it together, everything just works, and it certainly feels like everybody's in it together now.
One of my favorite things about it is that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. He is individually told to all the players that you met with, first thing, this is going to be hard. You're not going to like it. This is going to be difficult. There's going to be rigor here. We're going to do it because it is hard, not because it is easy. We're going to do it the right way. And that means it's going to be difficult. We'll have fun doing it. And eventually when it starts paying off, and we know it will because we just ran this system and ran it, right to the NFC Championship game, there will be good days. They're not going to be the first days. The first days are going to be hard and difficult, and they're going to suck. And you've got to buy into that to get the good days down the line. And I deeply appreciate that honesty from a coaching staff instead of saying, oh, we're just, we're going to hit the ground running. It's easy. We've done it before. I start to I have a very jaded ear for that kind of talk from new coaches. And Ben's been the opposite. He's been like, nope, we're going to make this difficult. Not just to make it difficult or weed people out, but make no mistake, we're going to work hard and we're going to ask you to toe the line. And that's not going to be easy every day. And I love that from him. Absolutely love it.
It reminds me of a message that, Dan Campbell had for Lions, but this was his first or second year of the rebuild. It might have been the second year. And I remember it was a clip from training camp, and they were doing a full padded practice. And obviously Ben Johnson had learned a lot from Dan Campbell as far as culture building. And Campbell was looking at the guys. He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put you guys through a padded practice right now, but I have to. I have to get you guys ready, because if you're not ready and you step out on that field, that's how you get hurt. And it was one of those where it's like, I'm going to ride you, and you're going to hate me on some days, but I'm doing it for you. It's not something that I enjoy doing, but I'm trying to get you ready for the rigors of the NFL season, because this is a very physical game. It's very taxing mentally and physically. And if you are not ready, and I didn't do my job to get you ready, that's how you get hurt. That's how your career gets ruined. And so it just felt like the most compassionate drill sergeant of all time. Right? And that sounds like an oxymoron, like a compassionate drill sergeant, but that's what coaches are there to do. They are there to make the easy days hard so that the hard days seem easy. And that is exactly the lesson that Ben Johnson took away from Dan Campbell. And you can already see it.
And it goes back to what you said earlier about the why, right? I'm not just saying run hard because I said run hard. I'm saying, run hard and hit and do it the right way so that in the middle of the season, most of you are still here and we are still better prepared than the people we play every week. That's the why. Now, if you don't like the why, or you don't want to do that, or you don't want to pull in the same direction all the rest of us do, that's a different conversation. And again, we can have that conversation honestly, but this is what I need. This is what I expect. And this is how it's going to go. And if you lay it out, you're correct. You get more buy-in from people that way, or certainly more buy-in from the people you want to be working with. And the workplace starts to feel very, very different. And Chicago has needed a workplace that felt different as a football team for a long time. Now, the folks that structure that workplace are Ryan Poles, and we can talk about the merits of keeping Ryan Poles. There were a lot of people that were calling for his head in the offseason because they said he's had enough chances and it hasn't worked out. Chicago decided to retain Ryan Poles. At that point, I'm going to tell you, I wasn't super hopeful about the outcome for this season, and I was surprised when they lured Ben Johnson away from Detroit as the top coaching candidate, knowing he was going to require the top money. He was already going to be one of the most expensive coaching candidates in the last cycle. This season, it was unparalleled. Ben Johnson was going to be able to ask for whatever he wanted from whichever team he went to, and he was going to get it because he deserved it. The Bears have typically not stepped up and paid that. They did this time, and I'm going to tell you, I remember the way I felt about it the day before they hired Ben Johnson, and I remember where I was and how I felt when I heard they hired Ben Johnson. And
Disbelief.
Yep. I sat at my desk and said, oh my God, they did it. I had gone on several podcasts that week and said, if it was me, I would hire Ben Johnson, but I really don't think they're going to do it because they never have. And they did, and everything changed. So some of the things that changed are all the coaches he brought with him. And he was ready for this part. New head coaches always... It's very interesting to watch how they assemble their first staff because they've been talking about it for a while. They've certainly been saying, hey, if I get my shot, are you going to come with me? Are you going to be free? Would you want to do this? And the number of coaches and the experience level of the coaches that Ben Johnson was able to assemble for his very first staff is telling and pretty damn awesome. So we'll start with the assistant head coach, who happens to be the wide receivers coach. I don't know of another wide receivers coach that holds that title in the league, but this is Antoine Randall L. And yes, elder NFL watchers will remember Antoine Randall L as a quarterback turned wide receiver who played in the league, went to Indiana in college, and has become a very successful, I would say, star young offensive coach. And Ben Johnson chooses to make him his assistant head coach in his first head coaching stop. Also interesting is Declan Doyle, the offensive coordinator. Again, just like when Mike Mack was hired in Seattle last summer, and I said, man, whoever a very prominent DC hires as their first DC, you have to watch out for. Same thing holds true for Ben Johnson, one of the best and brightest offensive minds in the NFL. When he gets his first head spot and he has to get an offensive coordinator in place, he chose Declan Doyle. That surprised some people, but Ben Johnson's faith is unwavering in Declan Doyle. Defensive coordinator, he went the other way. He went for experience, not only as a previous DC, but also as a previous head coach, Dennis Allen. He can literally say, Dennis, do your thing. I'm going to concentrate on this half of the team. Yes, it is my job to oversee the whole thing, but you've done that as well as being a great DC. I'm going to install you on that side, and you're going to run that side of the program. For special teams, it's Richard Hightower, and he got retained from the previous regime, and it's the second time he's been retained during a regime changeover, which is fascinating. And if you were a fan of this series last summer, we said when you find a good special teams coach, you just kind of hold on to him, even if that means going through transition. The Bears have done that with Richard Hightower now twice. On offense, Eric Bieniemy is the running backs coach. I got to meet Eric at the Combine. Been a fan of his work for a long time. Again, this is the former offensive coordinator of the Chiefs during their early run under Pat Mahomes. Very, very experienced offensive coordinator who many people thought was going to get his head coaching shot in the NFL. He didn't. He ended up going back to college, and now he is the running backs coach. And folks, I got to tell you, he's thrilled about it. As a former running back himself, when I got to talk to him and said, hey, I'm really excited about the fact you're coming to Chicago, he said, so am I. This is an opportunity to coach a position group that I love, and I'm excited about what we're capable of doing.
When did you run into EB? Was I with you?
You were not.
Was this one of the nights where you were a man about town and I was in
I was a man about town and
cave
and
editing?
You were in your goblin cave. It's true. No, it was pretty early in the night. As you know, those nights start at about 9 o'clock.
I was going to say early is like 10.
Yeah, no, early is 9. That's really early, but it was about 9:30. And strangely enough, I was in the exact same spot I was in when I met Jennifer King the year before, who was the previous Bears offense or the previous Bears running back coach. So it was pretty interesting. I was like, I guess this is just the corner where I stand to meet the Bears running back coach, but got to talk to EB for maybe 5 minutes. He was incredibly gracious and he is very excited. He brings a wealth of experience to the staff. Now to the offensive line. We got to talk about it. So Dan Rushar is the offensive line coach. A lot of people don't know who he is because offensive line coaches just aren't that famous. Let's be honest. He's got 41 years of coaching experience. He spent the last 2 seasons with Tulane, but more importantly, he was with the Saints for 10 years before that. During his time as the Saints offensive line coach, they achieved the ranking of number 1 in scrimmage yards per game at 399, and they had the highest points per game average at one point, 29.5. His offensive lines also allowed the second fewest sacks in the league in both 2017 and 2018. This is not a newbie, folks. A lot of those great lines that were in front of Drew Brees were coached by Dan Rushar. So he knows his way around an NFL offensive line, and Ryan Poles and I'm going to say Ben Johnson have assembled the requisite parts for him to be able to do that. He has the raw materials. This offensive line should be good to very good. Press Taylor is the pass game coordinator. I don't throw him there and there's a high point.
Press Taylor exists. Good note, EJ.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people have been concerned. They're like, yeah, but this whole staff's going to get brought down by Press Taylor. And I'm like, Ben Johnson obviously saw some of the characteristics he liked there, but Press Taylor's not in charge of this offense. Yes, he is coordinating the pass game, but this is Declan Doyle's offense. And there is no way that if Ben thought he was going to underperform or, to your point, be toxic, he would have brought him in. So that relationship is strong, and I'm just going to give that one a pass and kind of not watch a lot of the Jacksonville film because it was not pretty.
Well, I'll just say this. Press Taylor has gotten Doug Peterson fired twice. And what that tells me is that man is an incredible hang. Like, you got to be the coolest dude ever to get somebody fired twice for you willingly. So I'll go grab a beer with Press.
Okay, I'll come. Let me know when it happens.
I won't ask him to call my offense, but I'll go get a beer with him. Yeah.
It would be a fascinating beer. I'll give you that. JT Barrett is the quarterback's coach. Yes, JT Barrett, the former Ohio State quarterback, he is going to be helping Caleb understand what all these folks are asking him to do. But again, Antoine Randall L is the assistant head coach. He's a former quarterback. Declan Doyle, he's got a lot of resources to lean on here. And on defense and special teams, honestly, I think this might be my favorite hire, and that's saying something because I've spoken glowingly about several of these coaches already, is Al Harris, who's in charge of defensive backs and is the defensive pass game coordinator. Folks are talking about Al Harris still as a potential head coach in the NFL, sooner rather than later. If you're talking about stars on the defensive side, Al Harris has gotten a lot of press as a guy who will eventually be a head coach in the NFL. He is currently coaching DBs for the Bears. Yes, he has a coordinator title on the defensive side. He is incredibly well respected and experienced. Richard Smith is the linebackers coach. Again, talk about coaching experience. 45 years of coaching experience. He's a former DC, both in Atlanta and Houston. He's just coaching linebackers. Like, when you look at the round experience of this staff and the number of years and the places they've been and the success that they've had, this sets up Ben Johnson for first-year success as much as any of the personnel moves we're going to talk about, which are very important. But this staff is a good one. For a first staff, I would give this an A.
It's an incredible staff. And we kind of buried the lead a little bit with, like, Caleb year 2, like, massive storyline. I get it. The fact that this staff is so strong offensively and defensively is what gives me hope in year 2, Caleb. Because if he doesn't work with this staff, and obviously with the receivers and the upgrades of offensive line, like, at that point, the Bears are just cursed. Nothing's ever going to work. But you bring in Ben Johnson, you bring in Dennis Allen, who, like, this defense was already good. I think is going to make it even better, which ideally will then give Caleb more possessions, but more importantly, more possessions with favorable field position. Like, we know that Ben Johnson in the red zone is an absolute wizard. Like, DeAndre Swift is a good scheme fit as far as how the run game is going to be structured. Roshan is just going to be the new Jamal Williams. Like, 15 touchdowns, sign him up right now. Like, everything here, from the staff to the personnel to just the vibes in the building is telling me that Caleb's going to work. So I'm actually a lot less worried about it than I think most Bears fans are, because I know what I saw in college. Like, I know what's in there inside of Caleb, and I know what is now surrounding him compared to what he's had previously. And I know in my heart of hearts it's going to work because of how strong the staff is.
It's a tremendous, I'll say, nexus. This is an assemblage of talent, not only on the field, but on the coaching side, that I'm really excited to see, because, like you, if it doesn't work with all of this, with an actual offensive line, which was always a stumbling block that you could just get to and say, well, they're not protecting most of the time. Yes, they do occasionally, but it's not consistent. You can really say that the offense just doesn't work from there on out, running or passing. And that's been the Bears for the last couple of years solidly. So if you fix the offensive line, and then you have a quarterback with incredible skills, and then you have lots of great teachers on a staff, and you have the best play caller, arguably, in the NFL over the past 3 years in charge of that offense, you start to go, oh, now I actually care about all those receiving targets that they assembled last year that we were all high on, that Shane Waldron then wasted. You start to look at it all coming together and pulling in the same direction, and it gets really exciting.
I mentioned that Dennis Allen, I think, was going to make an already good defense even better. And, if you're looking at pass defense last year, they were 9th in EPA per play allowed. Run defense, not super great, but I don't think it's for lack of talent. I think they kind of halfway through the year, like, well, see you in 2025.
And they suffered injuries.
And
early.
they did suffer injuries. And I know that talent-wise, that should have been a better run defense than they were. But pass defense, like, the secondary was so good. Like, they were still a great pass defense. Obviously, the trades that they've made to improve the pass rush really, really helped out a lot as well. But I look at Dennis Allen's philosophy and how he fits with the personnel that they have assembled over the last few years. And I think that, like, truly this could be a top 6 to 8 defense, like overall, not just pass defense, but overall a top 6 to 8 defense in the league. He adores man coverage. Dennis Allen does historically. Chicago was 27th in man coverage usage last year, even while having Jalen and Kyler. And like Tyreek has had his issues, to put it kindly, since entering the NFL. But like, I know a good, talented press man corners in there. Like, he did it really well at Miami. So on paper, this secondary should be really good in man coverage, and they just never really maximized that, and they were still a top 10 pass defense. And typically, if you're looking at the list of like top 5 pass defenses, it's all the teams that play a lot of man coverage, and they're also really good at playing man coverage, so they can get away with it. I look at like Denver. I think that this team could be a Denver type of defense. We are sitting in cover 1 all day, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it because we're better than you in the secondary. And at the same time, Allen doesn't really blitz a lot either. Like, he plays it relatively simply, I would say. The only time he ever blitzes at an above average rate, not even at a super high rate, but at an above average rate, is in short yardage situations, whether it's second and short or third and short. He'll send bodies at the line of scrimmage to play the run on the way to the quarterback. But other than that, it's like, nah, we're playing man coverage, and we're rushing 4, and we're going to be simple in our scheming, but excellent in our execution. And Dennis Allen defenses, even when they are talent deficient, my God, they execute. He made some pretty good defenses in New Orleans out of non-elite talent overall. Like, they had their players, like they had their pieces, but like you never looked at that Saints defensive depth chart when he was there and just saw an overwhelming number of killers, right? It's like, oh, okay, we got Marshawn, we got DeMario, we got old man Cam still going, but like, you never looked at the whole depth chart and were like, oh my God, they're incredible. And then you look up at the end of the year and they were a good defense. Like, that's Dennis Allen. Like, he gets the most out of his guys. So I look at the talent that the Bears do have with Jalen and Kyler and Montez, it's like Dex, like all of these guys, the linebackers. And I'm like, that's more talent than what he had in New Orleans. And he did a lot in New Orleans. Like, this should be a really, really, really good defense. So beyond my excitement to see what Ben and Caleb do, I'm really excited to see what Dennis Allen does, because for the first time in a while, he doesn't have the Saints front office just lighting picks on fire. And he has a lot of defensive talent to work with.
I'm going to hop on my soapbox about Tyreek for a second, because there's lots of reasons to be angry at Tyreek Stevenson, but who he was as a player coming out in college was a very physical, perhaps too physical, handsy man corner, and he was really good at it. And that's why we loved him. We loved the pick when it happened. And then they didn't play him in man a lot. And he was not mature on the field. Absolutely needs to be said. This offseason, there have been multiple calls for his head. Like, nope, send him away. And I'm like, right when he's going to get excellent? Like, right when he is, if anybody was a Dennis Allen coded corner, Tyreek Stevenson is like a 90% match for that. He's literally getting imported into the perfect system to show off all the skills we loved, all the physical traits. He's just about to go off. Folks, don't send him out of town now. If you want to send him out of town 9 months from now because he did it again, or he can't keep his head in the game, or he's getting burned a lot, fine. But just wait for Tyreek Stevenson in year 1 of Dennis Allen defense, and then tell me you're really excited about kicking his ass to the curb, because I don't think that's going to be the sentiment. I think there is going to be a pretty massive sea change as long as he can keep his emotions in check and play the system. And if he does, Dennis Allen could turn him into a star.
Also, the other component to this is he's on a rookie contract. He's cheap. He's talented. And statistically speaking, the position group that gets injured the most is corner. If you have a cheap, talented guy on a rookie deal that you think can be good, you never trade that. Like, ever. So I never understood the calls for that. And maybe I think it's just pent up feelings because the Hail Mary thing, but it's like, I'm just chalking that one up to bad Flu's Bears. Like everything that happened last year, I don't care anymore. Like the whole team was toxic. I don't care. Like new era, new me. Like I'm like, give us at least to October to decide to trade the kid, right? If it doesn't work, then okay, fine. But not now.
No, I think he's going to be amazing. And I understand people writing off young players. And yes, most of it is emotional baggage from the Hail Mary. And look, it was a boneheaded play. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it was great, but like you, I'm willing to flush that and say he's also getting a new system and a new coach who are going to use his very best traits. Let's, I don't know, see if that works before we run him out of town on a rail. Like that just doesn't seem wise.
As far as who did get jettisoned so far, let's look at what this team did in March after Ben Johnson arrived and started remaking the roster. Obviously, the number of transactions that we talk about today will be a lot, and these are just the notable ones. The entire list is orders of magnitude longer. So if we're looking at notable departures in free agency, Keenan Allen, obviously no longer in the building. DeMarcus Walker, no longer in the building. Tevin Jenkins, this one hurts. No longer in the building. Not that I think that Tevin Jenkins was like the answer at guard, but the fact that he never became the answer at guard is what hurts me in the first place, because, God, I loved him in college. Matt Pryor, the other guard, no longer there. And then Coleman Shelton went back to the Rams after spending a year in the Windy City. As far as who got retained across the new regime, TJ Edwards got extended, Kyler Gordon got extended at $13.3 million, and he is worth every penny of that. Like, if you get yourself a top 5 nickel, 13.3 is a bargain. And then for third-party additions, here's the meat of this. Joe Thuney, brought in via trade from the Chiefs and then immediately paid. 33 years old, is still in the prime for a guard, especially one as good as Joe Thuney. So I'm not worried about his age whatsoever, and $17.5 million is a steal. And if you don't think it is, watch any Bears offensive line tape from the last 5 years. Dayo Odengbo, the one thing that I'll give Dennis Allen shit for is, man, he loves really big-bodied edges. He just has a type. Like, he loves his big body edges, and he doesn't love the bendy ones. He loves pocket collapsers. He loves guys that play the run. It's worked. Like, I'm not going to fault him too much for it, but as soon as the Dayo news came through, I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, that's the most Dennis Allen defensive end of the market. Olamide Zaccheaus, the wide receiver from the Commanders, brought in at $1.5 million. Grady Jarrett, hell yeah, brother, brought in to add even more to this pass rush, $14.2 million, 32 years young. I love that. Like, to play next to Dex, immediate upgrade at 3 technique. Drew Dahlman, the aforementioned Drew Dahlman, brought over from the Falcons, very experienced zone center, immediately an upgrade at the position, and is going to be a key cog in this run game. And then Jonah Jackson, also brought over from the Rams, a lot of experience running outside zone. So they were just accumulating guards, or rather interior offensive linemen overall, that can run outside zone over and over and over again. And when it comes to Joe Thuney, I mean, he can run anything over and over and over again. But like they were really prioritizing scheme fit and experience here in their offensive line additions. And I love every move they made. They improved the pass rush. They improved the defensive line overall. They got another wide receiver 5. Like, 10 out of 10. Could not have possibly had a better free agency period than the one that the Bears pulled off.
Really started with the offensive line. We've talked about that at the top and in the middle, and we're going to keep talking about it because it is the basis of keeping this offense on track. And they've not been able to do that. They have not had that foundation, and they have suffered for years. And this year they said, nope, we're not doing that. And they weren't done. They got even more in the draft, but they also overhauled the defensive line and said, yeah, injuries hurt us last year. We're going to insulate ourselves against that. And there were even some, I don't know, low-key sort of upside signing guidance that I think Dennis Allen might find interesting, like Daniel Hardy, the edge. Again, he was $1 million. Like, nobody cares about Daniel Hardy. He's a great special teamer, but I think he's going to find some pass rush in the Dennis Allen defense. Again, not as a starter, but you need waves of these guys. You need 8, 9 guys on the offensive line. That's what Ben Johnson said when he stood up at the podium of the combine. He said, it's not about your top 5. It's about your top 8 or 9. This is a long season. You have to have good reserves. And they, again, took that theory over to the defensive line as well. They added targets both in free agency and in the draft. This is a lot of churn, which is very typical when there's a new head coach, even more so when there's a new head coach and a new GM. Then they're not beholden to anybody from the previous regime. And, typically in that case, I think it's 66% of the roster turns over within the first 18 months. So we're seeing that. They're well on their way to that if they haven't hit that mark already. But it's not just about turning over the roster. It's about adding quality. And guys like Jonah Jackson, he's already worked with Ben. Ben knows who he is, and he can be a teacher, right? He can say, no, this is the way Ben wants this run. When he says this, he means this, and you got to do this. And if you do this, it works, because we did it in Detroit and it worked. So a lot of value there. A lot of people worried about Jonah Jackson's health history. I understand that. When healthy, he's absolutely a better guard than the Bears have had for the past couple of years and experienced in the system. That, to my mind, is a home run. And just the overall approach, like you said, they didn't do one thing and stop. They didn't go for one big signing and say, there's our new superstar. They said, we've got a lot of work to do here. And they just dug in and got it done. And it didn't stop at the draft. In fact, if anything, it accelerated. In round 1, number 10, a very weird pick in the draft. And I mean a weird spot to pick in the draft this year, because the talent really dropped off at 4 or 5. And then there was just don't pick a bad player. Get out of the first round. You have to make a first round pick somebody good. And they chose Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, who I think is a really good fit for what Ben wants to do in the passing offense. And some people said, they already have Cole Kmet. What are you doing? And Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, not the same player. They're not going to cannibalize snaps from each other. They will complement each other. You can play both of them on the field and still get more. But I think people kind of forget, because Sam Laporta didn't necessarily have the best second season. It was still very good by tight end standards. But let's just go back. Let's wind the Wayback Machine back to rookie Sam Laporta. He got 120 targets, 86 catches, 889 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And ... Colston Loveland's a better receiver than Sam Laporta was coming out of college.
That's key distinction, by the way, because we're not saying that he's absolutely going to match that production. We're just saying if you take Iowa Sam Laporta and you take Michigan Colston Loveland, and you're not even blind ranking. It's just those two guys, day one, big slot, tight end, whatever label you want to put on him, who do you think would hit the ground running? I think most people would probably look at Michigan Colston Loveland and be like, probably him. And that's nothing against Laporta. It's just Colston was phenomenal in that role.
Yeah. And before the draft, I tabbed Loveland as not just a tight end, because a lot of people are saying, well, again, specifically for Chicago, they're not going to take him because they have Kmet and this, that, and the other. And I was like, it's not just that he would be Sam Laporta. I actually think he's going to be a hybrid of Sam Laporta. He's going to get hybridized touches and production of Laporta and a little bit of what Amon-Ra St. Brown does in that offense, operating from the slot. Different type of player physically, different strengths, but he's going to get some of those targets. So he's going to kind of mush between power slot, inline tight end, move tight end, joker tight end, whatever you want. But he's going to get some of those quote unquote third wide receiver touches, and he's going to get a lot of targets. If he's healthy, I think 100 targets is a somewhat conservative estimate. Again, having picked him at 10 as your very first overall, number 1 draft choice as a head coach says a lot about how Ben Johnson feels about Colston Loveland and really his ceiling. And I was pretty happy with this pick because the Bears got out of the first round and avoided a lot of the pitfalls that were there. And I felt like a lot of other teams fell into those just because of the way the talent laid out in the draft. I think Colston Loveland's going to be a very useful piece. He makes sense, and I can immediately see how the Bears are going to use him in year 1.
And the key with Loveland in terms of how he fits here is, we go back to what that Lions offense was under Ben Johnson. It's under center, it's play action. We're working the intermediate middle of the field, which means lots of crossing routes, lots of glance routes, overs, anything that hits in that area of the field. That's what Loveland did really well at Michigan. He was their answer for working the middle of the field. And he did it from a variety of spots. You can put him in line and then have him on like a hard play action fake, like you're faking outside zone, and then like you have him kind of release and then run the deep cross the other way. If you're running a boot, like he is so freaking fast and tall that once he crosses that safety's face, like it's over. Like you have your shot play right there. You can have him get involved the other way. Like if you're running a boot the other way, then you have him kind of act like he's going to seal out the backside end and then just leak to the flat, and you try to get him a yards after catch opportunity. He can do that really well. Like Laporta got a shit ton of that when he was a rookie. I look at, okay, line him up as a big slot. I look at put him in the backfield. I look at put him out wide and have him be a lead blocker in the screen game, because he's not really a dominant point of attack blocker, but he can block in space. So if we want, DJ to get the most out of those little screens that they constantly throw him, like put him behind Colston Loveland. So like this team's going to run so much 12 personnel. Like they really are. I'd be willing to bet that their starting 5 for skill positions is Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland, Rome, DJ, DeAndre. And they're not just going to do the typical 12 personnel stuff, which is we're going to line up in a wing. Like they will, but it's so much more than that, because Colston can line up anywhere, because DJ and Rome have such different skill sets. And then, of course, you have 3 receivers behind them that you can roll in that all do different stuff. You got Roshan, who's there to run different types of runs than DeAndre Swift. This offense is going to be so multiple. And yes, they're going to lead in 12 personnel, but they're also going to run 12 personnel with like 9 different combinations of dudes. And, the fact that Loveland and Kmet together are going to be the engine of that grouping. I fell in love with the pick more and more every day when I realized, like when it clicked for me, like all the different stuff that they could do with him.
And if anybody's worried about Loveland's ability down the field, don't watch the tape from last year. Michigan had its quarterback struggles, but go back and watch the tape with J.J. McCarthy the year before. Loveland can get down the field from a power slot alignment, out and ups, down the boundary. He won a lot of those balls with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, and he has that ability. He didn't lose it. So when you pair him with the second round pick, number 39, a pick they got from the Panthers, this is Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. And I was not the hugest fan of Luther Burden. I've had some time to settle in and try and really understand why Ben wanted him. Again, this is a premium pick, top 40 pick. And I really think he's going to try and use Luther Burden like the Chiefs use Rashee Rice.
Oh, yeah. No, he's a design touch, yards after catch guy. Like that's what he is.
Yep. And when you were talking about stacks, I was like, they're going to stack Luther Burden behind Colston Loveland a bunch for that very reason. And I think really that's where Ben's going to try and leverage that skill set. Again, wouldn't have been my choice necessarily at 39, but I'm going to reserve judgment because Ben Johnson knows more about offense, has forgotten more about offense than I'll ever know. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. He has a very clear plan for what he thinks Luther Burden can do for this offense. Also in round 2, number 56, a pick they got from the Vikings. I think this might be the most fascinating pick of the Bears draft. That's Ozzie Trapillo, the tackle from Boston College. And if Ozzie Trapillo ends up being a starting tackle for the Bears, and that very well could happen, there's a lot in draft circles and league circles that thought he had starting caliber talent. He certainly got starting caliber size. He's an immense human. If he ends up being a starting tackle, much less a starting left tackle for the Bears this year and or next, he might be the most valuable pick in this entire draft for the Bears. And that's saying something because he's again, not quite a third round pick. He's number 56, outside the top 50, but still, that is a value. If you're looking at the value of free agency tackles this year, it's very possible if Braxton Jones moves on from the Bears next year, he's going to get $24 million, and people balk at that number. They say he's not worth it.
Dan Moore got 20. He's going to get 23. Yeah.
He's going to get 23 or 24. So Ozzie Trapillo could turn out to be a little bit of a sort of hidden linchpin for this Bears draft if he turns into a starting tackle. There's a lot of people that think he will, and I certainly wouldn't bet against it. I liked his tape. I thought it was a good pick. And again, it goes back to what Ben said at the podium. You got to have depth. And both of the last 2 seasons, the Bears have been bitten by not having good tackle depth. They've taken injuries at tackle, and their line play has declined precipitously when they've had to play their third tackle. So no matter what happens this year, their third tackle is going to be better starting off than it was. And again, if Ozzie elevates himself to be a starter in this offense, the Bears won big time.
I think he will be a starter, by the way. Like, they drafted him because they already know ahead of time by a year. Like, we're not paying Braxton that. And I'll be honest, Ozzie might just take his job sooner than that. Like, I was a really, really big fan of Trapillo as a prospect. Like, he's tall, but he gets away with it, which is one of the highest compliments I can give for a tackle that tall, is that, like, I can't tell that you're that tall. I mean, I can, but, like, it doesn't hurt you that much. Like, he's really, really strong. Like, I think that's a starting tackle, folks.
He's got tremendous reach, and he is tough as hell. He is tenacious as a tackle. Love that about his game. Their final pick in round 2, which kind of sounds strange. Their third and final pick in round 2, number 62, Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. Not a fan of this pick. Don't love the player. Didn't think he was explosive or dynamic. I thought this was way too early for him. I probably wouldn't have taken him until the 4th round. I know a lot of people have differing opinions of that. I thought maybe if they move him outside, lighten him up. He had some really good reps there the year before he left Texas A&M, being closer to the outside as a 5 tech. I thought I saw some explosion there. He played a little bit lighter. Again, they got a big time transfer. They moved him inside, and I thought his effectiveness just declined in a crazy way. Yes, he's a good run stopper. You don't draft good run stoppers in the 2nd round. You just don't. They're available in the 4th and 5th round, and we saw that even in this draft. There was tremendous defensive tackle depth in this draft. I didn't think the fit was great. I didn't think the value was great. I think the player's fine. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think that he doesn't have potential. He is loaded with potential, but he didn't realize that potential at Texas A&M. So again, usually guys that are drafted this high are either further along the development scale or just absolute freaks athletically. And he's talented athletically for sure, but I would not put him in the freak category.
I want to issue one amendment to the don't draft run stoppers in the 1st round. If you can't stop the run, I would consider it. I mean, again, this is not a great run defense last year. Like, I get it. I get it. Now, was there other stuff I would have done? Probably, but at least it wasn't the round 4 pick that I refuse to acknowledge still.
Well, we got that to go. So again, very strong start for the first 3 picks. Next 2 picks, which included the first pick on day 3, round 4, number 132 from the Bills. This was the first major zinger of the entire draft, not just the Bears draft. Ruben Hippolyte, the 2nd linebacker from Maryland, was really far down everybody's list that I know. Now, this does not mean he's going to be a bad player or will not make it in the NFL or is not going to be eventually a starter. Who knows? He absolutely could be. But we're talking about a guy in a thin inside linebacker class that was ranked anywhere between like 25th and 45th on lists at that position, not overall, like the 25th to 45th inside linebacker. And as always happens with draft picks like this, there's been a lot of revisionist history since. Oh, I knew this guy was going to get picked because he was fast, or I knew this guy was going to get picked because he had this one explosive play. Like, again, he's a talented player in a good conference, but that did not make him, he wasn't even on most lists. Even Dane Brugler, who writes The Beast, one of the most comprehensive draft guides out there. He was 35th, I think, on Dane's list, and he had no write-up. He just had name and stats. This was not a priority player, and certainly I don't think anybody you needed to reach for in the 4th round. I think if you were hot to get Ruben Hippolyte on your team for any number of reasons, you could have waited for your 5th round pick or your 6th round pick. I would even argue you might have gotten him with your 7th round pick. So to use your very first pick, a valuable pick on day 3, round 4, number 132 on Ruben Hippolyte, to me, is inexcusable from a process standpoint. Again, I'm going to separate that from the player because the cool thing about the NFL is it's a meritocracy. He now gets to live on how he plays on the field. If he plays and produces, he'll be there. If he doesn't, he won't. But from a process standpoint, which is all we have right now, which is why you can't grade draft classes for the first 2 to 3 years. On a process standpoint, this was terrible.
Just looking at the first 4 picks of the draft, and I was like, that's Ben. Oh, they gave Ryan 1. Okay, back to Ben in round 5. Like, that was such a Ryan Poles pick. You cannot convince me otherwise.
I won't try. I'm not exactly sure how they came to that pick or really why. It's the why that I really want to know of, like, look, I can understand falling in love with a player that you believe is, great and undervalued by everybody else. I get it. I think every team has those players on their board every single year. But at the spot in round 4, and it feels very much like a repeat of something the Bears have done under Ryan Poles, which is bid against themselves. I don't think anybody was knocking down the door for Ruben Hippolyte and to say, no, we got to do this. We got to use a 4th rounder on him or we're not going to get him. Maybe, again, it's possible. I have my doubts. And
it just reminds me of the Zach Pickens thing, where it's like you're competing with nobody to get Zach Pickens at that spot.
Correct.
And they did it anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Round 5, we get back on track with pick number 169, pick they got from the Bills, which is also a compensatory pick. Zay Frazier, the cornerback from Texas San Antonio. I really like this pick. Zay Frazier is a really cool player. 6'3", almost 6'4", on the outside as a corner, physical, not super experienced as a corner. Hasn't played the position for a long time, but developed really quickly playing it and showed high-end traits that I think Dennis Allen is thrilled to get in his defensive backfield in the 5th round. Zay Frazier has upside for days. And look, we're now in the 5th round. I know I just said lots of things about the 4th round. It's different, folks. Value declines sharply into the 5th, 6th, 7th round. If you want to take shots on players, 5th, 6th, 7th round is a place where you do it. And Zay Frazier still being on the board in this round is a great value pick. And like I said, it kind of got me back on track with this Bears draft. Round 6, number 195 pick they got from the Steelers. They go for more offensive line depth. I'm never going to be against that. They get Luke Newman, experienced guard for Michigan State. Also played some tackle as well. Had almost as many tackle snaps as guard snaps over his last 2 seasons. So if you're talking about a swing offensive lineman that you're taking a shot on, again, late in the draft, I will take both the conference experience and the multi-position versatility. Those are both great things. Last pick, round 7, number 233, a pick they got from the Bengals. Kyle Monangai. I love Kyle Monangai. Very stout little running back from Rutgers who is a bit of a slasher. He runs with power, but my favorite thing about Kyle Monangai are his feet. He has excellent feet as a running back. He is also incredibly tough, and there is no quitting him whatsoever. I believe he's the 2nd leading rusher in the Big Ten.
And also the 2nd best pass protector, too, which is surprising because he's really, really good at pass protection. He just happened to be in the same conference as Travion Henderson. But my God, he can protect.
And brings every ounce of his very significant, although shorter frame behind his pads when he pass protects. I love the Kyle Monangai pick. I know a lot of people were expecting the Bears to pick a running back earlier, and I think there were a lot of running backs that would have made fine picks in the Bears, to add to the Bears running back room, to wait all the way to the 7th, take advantage of the incredible running back depth in this draft and get a player like Kyle Monangai all the way down at 233. That's a very good closeout to the draft. So this draft was it was a good, strong start. A little bit nervy in the middle for me. I kind of lost faith. Then Zay Frazier, Newman, and Monangai got me back on track. And I can see the strategy for, again, the picks around the edges, the ones in the middle. I don't have a clear picture of why they picked those players at those spots.
I think you have 2 starters here and up to 4 high-quality role players. And if you're getting 2 starters and 4 high-quality role players in one draft, like that's the best you could ever hope for. Like, it truly is. So I think they crushed it. Free agency was great. Draft was great. Coaching hires were great. I have yet to complain about anything. Like, I feel like I got all my complaints out during the season last year and everybody got fired and we're like, all right, well, we'll see what happens in January. And then from January to April or January to May, like, it was just win after win after win after win. Like, I know it's a running gag on this podcast that every time we do a Bears episode, we're like, this is the year. But kind of feel like the year, EJ. Like, even by our standards, this is the most positive Bears offseason I can remember.
And we can laugh at ourselves because that's why I wrote my opening. Is every year we've bought into the hype. Yes, this year feels a little bit different, but yes, in the back of our minds, we have to know it could all fall apart. Like you said, if it does, at that point, Chicago's just cursed. But there seem to be a lot of reasons for optimism that I would call logical. This is not just homer behavior. This is not just fandom kicking in. These are a lot of good moves that have raised a lot of eyebrows around the league in terms of, wait, the Bears are serious now? Like, they're actually going to do the things? They're going to eat their vegetables? Get out of here. And hopefully it's that and more, and all of that pays off on the field in the fall, because that's what really matters.
As far as notable UDFAs, this is one of the few. Like, there's a couple of these, but this is one of the few UDFA pools where I actually didn't get to any of these guys during the pre-draft process. So they were diving deep in the rankings, and I personally don't have any anecdotes or no. Do you have anything?
I do. I got to several of them, and I was not terribly excited. I did not love the UDFA process, and that's been pretty consistent under Ryan Poles. Ryan Pace, I think, did a better job of cultivating UDFA finds. Ryan Poles and his staff don't seem to put the same emphasis on it. I was pretty excited to see a couple of edges on there. Xavier Carlton, the edge from Cal. I watched him first out of this class once I heard his name announced. Talked to some folks I know that were Pac-12 stalwarts for a long time and said, hey, what's here? They said, he didn't necessarily get the best opportunity there, but I watched some tape, didn't come away super excited. And then I was like, well, there's another one. I'll go watch the one from Kansas, Jeremy Robinson. Even less excited about him. So this isn't maybe Major Burns, the safety from LSU, I'll get excited about or could get excited about. But on first blush, this was not a UDFA haul where I went, oh, they're really exploiting that part of the process. Good for them. It much more felt to me like, this is a status quo for Ryan Poles. He's not big on the UDFA process.
Well, if we learned anything from Artie, DBs with the last name Burns, risky proposition. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Answering our questions at the core of every single episode. We actually got, so now, by the way, peek behind the curtain. This is the first episode that we've recorded where we've had like a few days of feedback in the comments. And something that, people brought up is they missed the floor and ceiling section at the end of each team. Our intention with like the what is the goal for the season is to essentially be the same discussion. So if you want us to like put numbers on it, like we can do that for you guys. We have no problem doing that. But we're as framing it of like what is the goal for the year and like what do we think is like realistic for the year is our way of trying to have a very similar discussion. So if you guys want like an actual like high end like or upper end what we think they could get as far as wins versus what we think they could get as far as losses, if they take on injuries, like we could do that for you guys. But I wanted to just add that note in there. Like ideally this segment kind of fills the same piece for you. As for that question, what is the goal for this season? Is it outrageous to say not just make the playoffs, but win a playoff game?
I don't know if it's outrageous. I think it's optimistic, but I absolutely think it's what Ben thinks the goal is for this team for this year only. And I will put that asterisk on there because after this year, it's going to be go farther than that. For me, the goal is to be competitive for the second spot in this division, which would be the wild card spot late in the year. You need to be in the hunt and you need to be a threat to the teams that are looking for that spot, especially in your division. You've got to be able to knock those teams off to go anywhere. Because right now, I don't believe they're the most powerful team in the division. We'll talk about that all week. But I do think they need to be in the mix. They need to be the second or third team with a very similar record that is pushing for that spot that is a potential wild card spot. And they need to do that this year, even with all these changes, because they are not starting at zero. Let's be honest. They have their quarterback prospect, highly drafted. They have their offensive line assembled. They have their coaching staff, which we called very good. They're not short on weapons. They had the weapons last year. They couldn't get the offensive line together. They kept their weapons. They didn't get rid of all of them, and they added even more. The defense was already pretty good under the previous regime, and again, they brought in a coach we think can maximize it. So the pieces are here. So when you say, is it crazy? No, it's not crazy. If that happened, I would be like, they hit all the green lights and all those things worked out. But either way, and really, I think more appropriately, no matter what, no matter if they do suffer injuries, again, they've insulated themselves with depth on both lines. Outside of a starting quarterback injury, which is going to sink just about any team, no matter what happens, Ben Johnson, I think, is going to will this team to contention late into the season, and that's the goal, to prove to them, yes, all these changes mattered, and we were right there at the end. if we get that playoff spot. I don't think he'll be done, right? I think he'll very much want to win that game. And hopefully this team is one of those teams that is threatening at that time of year, because to be honest, that's the measure of legitimacy in the NFL. It's not whether you make the playoffs, it's whether or not when you make the playoffs, somebody goes, ooh, we didn't want to draw them. That sucks. We might not beat them.
Like the Rams last year.
Correct.
Right? Started out 1-4, and then we got to January, and we're like, God, I really don't want to play the Rams. And Eagles barely survived. Now, one more note before we get out of here. I didn't bring up the Bears infographic, the companion infographic that we have on the Patreon a whole lot this episode, because everybody involved with the creation of that infographic, i.e. the coaches that made all the decisions that led to all the very, very, very upsetting numbers, they're all gone. So really, if you're a Bears fan and you want an infographic that might serve your purposes even more this offseason, I mean, yes, the Bears one exists and it's on the Patreon right now. The Lions infographic is coming in a few days when we get to the Lions episode. So make sure you go to the Patreon and sign up for that, because you'll get all of that Lions data that I had previously talked about in the Ben Johnson discussions. And then the Saints episode, when that comes out, when that Saints infographic comes out, you're going to get a whole bunch of Dennis Allen defensive data. So weirdly enough, this is one of the few teams where like your own infographic, like it matters, but the ones that matter more are other teams. So yeah, those are coming soon. But either way, we thank you if you are a patron and you're helping us support the show in that way and consuming all of the data that we never really get to bring up in these episodes because it's so niche and because
it's 18 pages
and it's 18 pages of data. So obviously we don't get to just use all of it, but you can obviously find all that over on the Patreon. And of course, on Friday, we do our NFC North recap show is coming on Friday as well. So we have a bonus episode if you're a patron too. God, clunkiest plug I've ever had at the end of an episode, but that's what I get for staying up till 4 a.m. last night editing. My brain's mush at this point. Help me get out of here, EJ.
You want the TLDR version? Become a patron. Lots of great extra info, and you're helping support content that we believe in. And honestly, if you're still here an hour and 15 minutes into the Bears episode, you believe in it too. We'll see you for the rest of the week, which is the NFC North, which was one of the most competitive divisions in football last year. So going to be a fascinating week. We'll see you for the next one.